wisdom was that an advanced and complex Maya society didn't emerge until centuries later. But sites like El Mirador are changing those views. Richard and I returned to El Mirador to climb to the top of its largest pyramid complex, La Danta. Built around 200 BC, at the eastern edge of the city, the complex faces the Tigre Pyramid to the west.
We're on the third level, Josh.
Richard believes La Danta is the largest pyramid complex on Earth. It covers nearly 2 million square feet of ground. Rising over 220 feet in height, La Danta is also the tallest structure ever built by the Maya.
Ah, look at that.
As we reach the pinnacle,
It's the top of the Maya world, actually.
Richard explains El Mirador is one of several pre-classic cities that can be found here in the Mirador Basin.
See lots of sites. For example, that's the site, the city of Nakbe on the horizon over there. You see the big pyramids of Nakbe.
Just that little hump
That hump.
under that cloud.
Yeah, right under the cloud.
Any others?
Got others, the great city of Tintal over here, this way here.
Neighboring pre-classic cities like Nakbe, 7 miles southeast, and Tintal, 13 miles southwest, were connected by a series of raised causeways made of stone. These ancient Maya roads acted as spokes in a wheel, connecting all the pre-classic cities throughout the Mirador Basin.
When they put these massive causeways through here, it unified them into what we think was a single state-level society. In fact, we think, Josh, that this was the first state-level society politically in the Western Hemisphere.
And until discoveries like Mirador were made and these sites like this were excavated, archaeologists didn't think that existed that far back in Maya
Not in the
civilization.
pre-classic. This is something that was supposed to exist only in the classic period of time.
And since the classic period in Maya history started over 500 years after the development of El Mirador, I have to ask,
The classic isn't really the classic anymore.
It really isn't the classic. In many ways, it's not there. There was a tremendous rise and fall of complex society here that we need to look at.
Clearly, this is the rise. And
This is the rise.
we're standing on what was the result of this rise. What led to the fall?
We think the very thing we're standing on is a symbol of that degeneration. And I want to show you specifically some of those factors. Let's go.
the ancient Maya dominated the Central American rainforest. They built great cities of stone on a scale that was never duplicated, and they harnessed the natural resources of the region. But archaeology at these pre-classic sites indicates that after 2,000 years of occupation, the early Maya abandoned these great cities around 200 AD and retreated back into the jungle. Why? To find out, Dr. Richard Hansen and I head to the base of La Danta Pyramid here at El Mirador. He believes the early Maya left clues that point to their inevitable demise. Clues in the very stones found in their pyramids.
This is the very first level of the building. And you come on down here, this is these huge steps of the building, right from the very first ground level, the plaza's up. And they took these enormous blocks and ran them lengthwise into the building. And instead of running them this way, lengthwise, so you have the maximum surface exposed, they ran them with into the building this way.
The stones I saw before at Structure 34 were made with the same enormous half-ton blocks.
But instead of going widthwise, which makes sense, they're going lengthwise.
Lengthwise.
Burying a lot of the surface they created.
Exactly. So right here, for example, you have 3 massive stones here that could have been done with 1 block.
Yeah. But doesn't that seem wasteful?
It is.
Why would they do that?
Because they could.
Oh.
Richard tells me the early Maya harvested enormous quantities of limestone to build their pyramids and palaces. Once built, they coated the pyramids again and again with a thick layer of plaster. Plaster which required the burning of thousands of acres of rainforest. The ancient Maya literally stripped the Mirador Basin of its trees to coat and recoat these immense pyramids of stone.
And then on top of all that hard work, burying it, they then cover it with plaster.
With plaster. Because they had the resources, they had the labor and the control of that labor to do this kind of expense. It's kind of like having a gold-plated toilet seat.
It wouldn't be like having a gold toilet seat. It'd be like having a gold toilet seat and then painting it white. So you didn't even know it was gold. That's right. You know?
That's exactly right. The conspicuous consumption of resources was one of the things that led to their demise. Remember, they were here 1,000 years already in the basin, doing very well, having massive populations, massive architectural programs. But when it went to this excess, when it went to this kind of cost, it had tremendous consequences for them.
Evidence of overconsumption is found not only at the pyramids, but in the very soil itself. Richard and I head to a trench dug along the perimeter of El Mirador's swamps that he says paints a very clear picture of the city's tragic end. First, he instructs me to get into the trench.
Show you a thing or two here. Okay. All right, we're down about a yard down in the soil, and you notice right at the bottom of your toe, there's that darker color right there.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is the good stuff. That was the stuff that was here when the Maya were here originally. Why don't you dig down just a little bit there and bring some of that up?
Okay.
Right there.
Okay.
Okay, notice that it's kind of a brownish gray color. This is the original soil surface of this swamp originally.
The soil represents the muck that was transported by basket loads to El Mirador, the same soil the early Maya used to create their rich gardens for planting.
But look what's above that level there. Between the surface soil and that level there is a layer of gray.
This stuff on the sides.
Yeah.
You've got almost 1.5 feet, 2 feet of this stuff. And it feels like clay.
It is.
It is clay.
Washed in over that organic level.
On top of their fertile soil.
On top of their fertile soil.
Well, you couldn't grow in this, could you?
Can't grow anything in this.
Richard believes the early Maya of the Petén, through deforestation, destroyed their most vital resource, swamp soil. Without trees to protect it from erosion, sterile clay washed in over the rich organic mud.
And the only thing that would create that kind of massive deforestation is a lime industry. They had to burn every single tree, green tree, to make that kind of lime.
So all the temples and staircases we've seen where they had plaster, the lime was created by burning the green trees.
That's right. And that created the deforestation, the sediments washed in, the clay washed in, and buried that rich organic level. They couldn't get to it anymore, and you can't feed a population without that.
So once again, we're seeing environmental degradation leading to cultural collapse.
That's right.
And the proof is right here in the soil.
That's it.
With no ability to grow crops, the early Maya were forced to abandon their immense cities in the Mirador Basin. The pyramids and temples were eventually overgrown by the rainforest and lost for centuries beneath the jungle canopy. As archaeologists continue to seek out lost Maya cities, we continue to puzzle over their ancient origins. Long before the birth of Christ, there were Maya kings in the rainforests of Central America. They built enormous pyramids and cities whose scale was never duplicated. Today, their finely detailed artwork and complex agricultural systems suggest these pre-classic Maya were as advanced as their classic descendants.